My adopted parents told me something that flipped my whole life upside down. That's the only way I can even start this story, because the moment they said it, my heart sank like a stone in water. I can still hear their voices, shaky but firm, sitting across from me at the kitchen table. My mom wouldn't look me in the eyes. My dad's hands wouldn't stop fidgeting. Then, after what felt like hours of silence, they said words I never thought I'd hear in my life. "We haven't been fully honest with you about who you really are." At first, I thought it was about something small, maybe some family detail they forgot to share. But then my stomach turned, because I saw the look in their eyes. This wasn't small. This wasn't simple. This was life-changing. I sat there frozen, waiting for them to finish, waiting for the part that would explain why my whole body felt like it was about to break apart. But instead of answers, they gave me silence. And that's where everything started spiraling. Before I tell you what happened next, I need to back up, because you need to understand the kind of life I thought I had, the kind of parents I thought I knew, before this moment came crashing down on me. I grew up thinking I had a pretty normal childhood. Not rich, not poor, just simple. My dad worked long hours at his job, my mom stayed home most of the time, and I went to school, played sports, made friends, came home, and felt safe. If you asked me a year ago, I would have told you my family was solid. We weren't perfect, we argued, we struggled with money sometimes, but we were close. Or at least, that's what I believed. There were little things, though, that never made sense. For example, I never looked much like either of my parents. Everyone always said, "Oh, you must look like some distant relative." I believed it, because why wouldn't I? Kids don't question that stuff. And whenever I asked my parents for old baby photos, there were barely any, just a couple, and they always looked different, almost like I didn't belong in the frame. Still, I brushed it off. I mean, what else could it be? I trusted them completely. The first real crack in the foundation came when I was 13. I remember digging through the attic for old board games when I found a small box tucked away behind some suitcases. Inside were papers with my name on them, but not my last name. A different name, a name I didn't recognize. When I asked my mom about it, she snapped at me to stay out of things that weren't mine. Her face was red, her voice sharp, and for the first time in my life, I felt like she was hiding something big. But after that night, we never talked about it again. And over time, I convinced myself it was nothing. Fast forward to now. I'm sitting across from them at the table, their words hanging heavy in the air. "We haven't been fully honest with you about who you really are." Everything inside me screamed for them to just spit it out, to stop circling around whatever truth they were holding back. But instead of answering, my dad pushed a small brown envelope across the table towards me. My hands shook as I reached for it. Inside was a single sheet of paper. The moment I read the first line, my heart stopped. And that's when I realized nothing in my life was ever going to be the same again. Growing up, I'd always been told I was special. Not in a braggy way, but in the sense that my parents made me feel chosen. They said things like, "We prayed for you," and "You're the best thing that ever happened to us." I thought they were just being sweet, that it was normal parent stuff. But now looking back, it feels different. Like every word they said was carrying a secret underneath. Highs and lows were part of my childhood. Some years were amazing. We'd take road trips, laugh until our stomachs hurt, stay up late watching movies together. Those were the highs. But then there were the lows too. My mom crying in her room for reasons she never explained. My dad going quiet for weeks, like something heavy was on his shoulders. I thought it was just adult problems. But now I wonder if it was guilt. The first time I really felt like something was off was in high school. Everyone had to bring in their baby pictures for a class project. I didn't have mine. My mom gave me one photo, a blurry shot of me as a toddler, and when I turned it in, my teacher said something that stuck with me. "Are you sure this is you? It looks older than it should be." I laughed it off, but inside I couldn't stop thinking about it. And then came the letter in that envelope at the table. I didn't get through more than a few words before my chest tightened and I felt like I couldn't breathe. My mom tried to reach for my hand, but I pulled away. All I could say was, "Why didn't you tell me this before?" And the look on her face told me the truth. She had been afraid of this moment for years. But before they could explain more, before I could even process what I just read, the sound of my phone buzzing on the counter broke the silence. I reached for it, thinking it would be a friend or maybe some random notification. But when I looked at the screen, my blood ran cold. Because the message on my phone wasn't from anyone I knew. It was from a blocked number. And it said, "So, they finally told you." The second I saw that text, my whole body froze. "So, they finally told you?" I just stared at the screen. The words burned into my brain. My parents were still sitting across the table, their eyes locked on me, waiting for me to say something. But I couldn't, because this message meant one thing. Somebody else knew. Somebody out there, watching, had been waiting for this exact moment. My dad noticed the look on my face. "What is it?" he asked. His voice was low, almost trembling. I didn't answer. I just turned the phone around and showed them. The color drained from my mom's face. She whispered something under her breath, too soft for me to catch. My dad muttered, "No, no, no, no," and stood up so fast his chair nearly toppled. "Who is this?" I demanded, my voice cracking. "How do they know?" Neither of them answered right away. The silence in the room felt like a scream in my ears. Finally, my mom whispered, we didn't think anyone would ever contact you." That was it. That was all I needed to hear. Whoever sent that text wasn't random. They knew the secret too. Maybe they were part of it. I typed back, my hands shaking. Who is this? What do you mean? 3 dots appeared on the screen. Someone was typing. My heart hammered in my chest. And then, just as suddenly, the dots disappeared. No reply. The room felt smaller, the air heavier. I wanted answers, but every time I opened my mouth, my parents just looked at me with this broken expression, like they wanted to protect me but didn't know how anymore. Please, I said, my voice cracking. Please just tell me the truth, all of it. My dad sat back down slowly, rubbed his hands over his face, and said, "It's not that simple." I snapped. What's not simple? You lied to me my whole life, and now someone out there knows something I don't? You think that's simple? The anger in my voice made my mom flinch. I hated that I sounded like that, but I couldn't help it. Everything I believed about my life was crumbling right in front of me. The rest of that night was a blur. They didn't tell me much, just that the truth about my adoption was complicated, that there were reasons I couldn't understand yet. They begged me to trust them, but how could I? Every time they opened their mouths, it felt like another lie was crawling out. When I finally went upstairs to my room, I couldn't sleep. I kept staring at my phone, waiting for another text, but nothing came. My mind spun with questions. Who sent that message? How long had they been watching? What else did they know? By 3 a.m., I made a decision. If my parents weren't going to tell me the truth, I'd find it myself. The next day, I skipped class and went digging through the attic again. I found that same box I'd seen years ago, the one with my name and the strange last name. Only this time, I searched deeper. Buried at the bottom, under papers and old receipts, I found an envelope, sealed shut. My fingers shook as I tore it open. Inside was a photograph. It was black and white, faded with age, a young woman holding a baby. She looked nothing like my mom. Her face was sharp, her eyes hauntingly familiar. And the baby in her arms? It was me. I just knew. But that wasn't the part that made me stumble back. On the back of the photo, written in shaky handwriting, were 4 words. Keep this from them. I sat there on the attic floor, clutching that photo, my head spinning. Who was the woman? Why did she look so much like me? And who was them? My parents? Or someone else entirely? Before I could even start to process, my phone buzzed again. It was another message from the block number. This time, it wasn't a question. It was an address, and one chilling line. If you want the truth, come alone. The address burned into my brain like a brand. I stared at it over and over, half expecting it to disappear if I blinked. But it stayed. Real. Solid. Waiting for me. I knew I should have gone downstairs and shown my parents. Demanded answers. But something deep inside me said they wouldn't tell me the truth. Not the full truth. They'd protect their version of the story. Whoever sent this address clearly wanted me to know something they didn't. My chest tightened with fear, and curiosity twisted together. Do I go? Do I ignore it? What if it's a trap? By the time the sun set, my decision was made. I had to go. The next day, I told my parents I was staying late for a school project. My mom smiled faintly, relieved that I was acting normal, but my dad gave me this long, searching look, like he knew I was lying. I grabbed my jacket, shoved the photo into my pocket, and left. The address led me 2 towns over, to a part of the city I'd never been to before. The houses there looked tired, worn down, sagging under years of neglect. The one I was looking for stood at the end of a narrow street, its paint peeling, windows cracked. My hands trembled as I walked up the steps. I hesitated at the door, every instinct screaming at me to turn back. But I couldn't. Not after everything. I knocked. For a moment, nothing. Then, the sound of slow footsteps inside. The door creaked open, and an old woman with gray hair and piercing eyes stood there, staring at me like she'd been waiting her whole life. "You came," she said, her voice raspy, but strong. My throat was dry. "Who are you?" She smiled, a bitter curve of her lips. "I'm your grandmother." The words hit me like a punch to the chest. My knees nearly gave out. Grandmother? I'd never even thought about that possibility. I don't understand. I don't understand, I stammered. My parents never... She cut me off sharply. Of course they didn't. They never wanted you to know. She stepped aside, motioning me to come in. Against every ounce of better judgment, I did. The inside of the house smelled like dust and old wood. Faded photos lined the walls, but I didn't stop to look at them. I followed her into the living room where she sat down slowly in an armchair. Her eyes never left mine. You've lived your whole life thinking they were your parents, but they're not. They took you, stole you. The room spun. My stomach turned to stone. That's not true, I said automatically, though my voice was weak. She leaned forward, her gaze burning into me. It is. And deep down, you know it. I shook my head. They told me they adopted me. Adopted? She spat the word out like poison. No, child. Adoption is legal. What they did was not. Her words slammed into me harder than anything my parents had said. I felt like I couldn't breathe. Why are you telling me this now? I whispered. She lips curled into that bitter smile again, because the truth always finds its way out, and because she reached for a small wooden box on the table beside her chair and slid it toward me. My fingers hovered over the box. My whole body trembled as I slowly lifted the lid. Inside were documents, birth records, photos, and a name. My name. But not the name I'd grown up with. My real name. I couldn't hold back the tears as I stared at it. But before I could ask another question, before I could even process what I was holding, there was a sharp knock on the door. The old woman froze. Her eyes widened with fear. "They found you," she whispered. The knock was sharp, heavy, and deliberate. Not the kind of knock that said, "neighbor," or "delivery," but the kind that carried authority. My stomach dropped. The old woman, my supposed grandmother, pressed a finger to her lips. Her eyes darted to the box still on my lap, then to the back of the house. "Hide it," she hissed. "Now." I shoved the lid closed, my hands clumsy with panic, and stuffed the box under my jacket just as the knock came again, louder this time, almost rattling the frame. "Who is it?" the woman called, her voice trembling slightly. "It's us," came a deep voice from the other side, too calm, too certain. "Open the door. We need to talk." Her face drained of color. "Them," she muttered under her breath. "Of course it's them." Before I could ask who, she shuffled to the door, her thin frame surprisingly defiant. She cracked it open only a few inches. I leaned forward, my heart pounding so loud I swore they'd hear it. And then I saw. It was my dad. My adoptive dad. Standing there, his jaw set, his eyes like steel, and right behind him, my mom. My mom's eyes swept the room in a single glance, and then they landed on me. Relief, anger, fear, all of it flickered across her face in an instant. "Sweetheart, come home. Now." I froze. Every muscle in my body screamed to move, but I couldn't. The weight of the box under my jacket pressed against me like a brand. "What are you doing here?" I demanded, my voice cracking but louder than I expected. "How did you know where I was?" Dad's gaze hardened. "That doesn't matter. What matters is you come with us, right now." The old woman laughed then, a bitter, hollow laugh. "Of course you came. You knew she'd find me eventually." She turned to me. "Do you see now? They've been hiding this from you. They've been hiding me from you." My chest heaved. The walls felt like they were closing in. "Stop," Mom snapped at her, her voice low but sharp like a knife. "Not nearly enough," the woman shot back. "You've stolen years. You've stolen her. And you'll never silence me." Dad stepped forward, his hand pressing against the door to push it open wider. "We're leaving," he said firmly, his eyes locking onto mine. "This woman is not who you think she is. Don't listen to her." But the old woman's voice cracked with desperation as she reached for me. The room exploded into noise, movement, and panic. My dad shoved the door open with such force it slammed into the wall, shaking the whole frame. My mom surged forward, reaching for me, her voice breaking as she shouted my name. At the same time, the old woman, my supposed grandmother, tightened her grip on my wrist, her thin fingers like iron shackles. For a moment, I was caught between them, literally being pulled in two directions. My arm screamed in pain, but my chest hurt more, because this wasn't just about who had my hand. It was about who had my life. "Let go of her," my dad barked, his voice carrying a command I had never heard before, the kind that brooked no disobedience. "She deserves the truth," the old woman hissed, her eyes blazing as they locked onto mine. "Don't you see what they've done to you? They've stolen you, hidden you, built your entire life on a lie." I tried to pull free, but it only made both of them tighten their grip. "Stop!" I screamed, my voice cracking. "Just stop!" But they didn't stop. The box under my jacket pressed into my ribs, a constant reminder of the secrets I'd already uncovered. My real name, the photo, the message scrawled on the back, "Keep this from them." I yanked backward, hard, and both my parents and the old woman staggered slightly, just enough for me to wrench my wrist free. My skin burned where her fingers had been. I stumbled into the middle of the room, breathing like I'd just run a marathon. "No one moves," I said, surprising myself with the authority in my voice. My hands were shaking, but I pulled the box out from under my jacket and held it up. "I have this. I know there's more. So either someone starts talking, or I swear I'm walking out that door and never coming back." The room went still. For the first time, my dad's face cracked. The stoic mask he'd worn since I was a kid slipped, and underneath it I saw something raw. Fear. My mom covered her mouth, tears brimming in her eyes. The old woman leaned back in her chair, her lips curling into a grim smile. "Go on," she said softly, almost triumphantly. "Let's see what they say." My dad turned to me, his voice low but firm. "Sweetheart, please, you don't understand what you're holding. That woman is manipulating you." "Manipulating me? Like you manipulated me my entire life? Like you let me believe a lie for 20 years? His jaw clenched, but he didn't argue. He just lowered his gaze. And for the first time, I realized he had no defense. The old woman let out a short, humorless laugh. See, he can't deny it. Not this time. My mom stepped forward, her voice breaking. We did what we thought was best. You were in danger. From what? I cut in, my voice sharp. From her? From the truth? She hesitated, glancing at my dad, and in that pause, something inside me shattered. Because the answer wasn't no. It wasn't even yes. It was silence. And silence was worse. The old woman leaned forward, her hands gripping the arms of her chair. They took you from your real family. From me. You weren't abandoned, child. You were stolen. And I can prove it. She pointed at the box in my hands. That's only part of it. There are more documents, records, all of it hidden because they knew, sooner or later, the truth would come for them. My parents both shouted at once, "Lies! Don't listen to her!" But their voices cracked with desperation, and my heart knew the truth even before my head did. Then why not just show me? I demanded. Why not lay it all out if you have nothing to hide? My dad's face darkened, a storm gathering. Because some things, he said slowly, are better left buried. That was it. That was the spark. The old woman pushed herself to her feet, frail but fierce. Buried? She spat. Like my daughter? Like the life you destroyed when you took hers? The words hung in the air like a blade. My breath caught. Your daughter, I whispered. Her eyes softened as they locked on mine. Your mother. Your real mother. She was mine, and she loved you more than anything. They took you from her. My knees buckled, and I nearly dropped the box. No, my mom gasped, tears spilling down her cheeks. No, don't do this. Yes, the woman snapped. It's time she knows. My dad's fist slammed down on the table, the crack of wood making me jump. Enough, he roared. You have no idea what you're talking about. But his voice broke at the end, and in that break, I heard it. Guilt. Real, undeniable guilt. The room dissolved into chaos again. My mom sobbing, begging me to listen, my dad pacing like a caged animal, his fury bubbling over, the old woman thrusting more accusations like daggers into the air, and me, standing there with the box, feeling like I was holding the weight of the universe in my hands. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. Stop! I screamed again, louder this time. The sound echoed through the small house, silencing everyone. Tears blurred my vision, but I kept my voice steady. I don't know who to believe. I don't know what's real, but I know this. I deserve the truth, and I'm going to find it, with or without you. I shoved the box under my arm and turned toward the door. My dad lunged forward. Don't you dare walk away from us. But before he could reach me, the old woman stepped between us, her frail body blocking his path. Let her go, she said fiercely. For a heartbeat, no one moved. My dad's fists clenched at his sides. My mom collapsed into a chair, sobbing, and the old woman stood like a sentinel, trembling but unyielding. I walked out the door. The night air hit me like a slap, cool and sharp. My legs moved on their own, carrying me down the steps, across the cracked pavement, away from the house that had become a battleground. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know who I could trust. All I knew was that my life, the life I thought I knew, was gone. The only thing left was the truth, and the truth was waiting for me inside the box. But just as I reached the corner of the street, my phone buzzed. It was another text, from the blocked number. You're closer than you think, but you're not ready for everything you're about to learn. My chest tightened as I read it. My hand shook so badly, I almost dropped the phone. I looked back once, at the dim light spilling from the house, the silhouettes of my parents and the old woman framed in the doorway, their figures locked in silent war. Then I turned away, and walked into the dark. A week later, I sat alone in my room, the wooden box open on my desk. Its contents were spread out in front of me, birth records, faded photographs, letters I hadn't dared to read yet. I'd spent days poring over them, piecing together scraps of a story that still didn't make sense. My real mother, a name I'd never heard before, dates that didn't line up, holes that begged for answers. I told myself I needed time, that I wasn't ready to confront anyone, not my parents, not the old woman, not even myself. And for the first time in days, I almost felt calm. That's when I heard it. A faint click. I froze. It wasn't from my door. It wasn't from the hallway. It was closer. My eyes darted to the box. The sound had come from inside. Slowly, with hands that trembled more than I wanted to admit, I lifted the false bottom I hadn't noticed before. Beneath the layer of papers was something I couldn't mistake, a small flash drive. There was a strip of masking tape across it, one word scrawled in shaky handwriting. Watch. My blood ran cold, because I didn't recognize the handwriting, and it wasn't the old woman's.